And they could have, since they are licensed contract, they may have already started.
Yeah, my phone got one.
The-
Or maybe they have, I just noticed they had the dump truck.
Hey there, Miss Brooks. How are you?
I'm good.
Hey girl, how are you?
How are you?
There you go.
The man, Mr. Lady, Mr. Bill.
Good to see you, all right?
How you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you. Yes, ma'am. Hey, Mr.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Good.
Sammy, there's a
Wait,
speed
where
limit.
am I thinking? Sweater? This is something I need to repair.
Maybe look in my closet and bring me the blue jacket hanging. You know where the dresses are? Well, on the left side, where the dresses are at the top. There's a blue jacket. Well, it's not one of these black, it's just me.
Miss Nita.
I'm fine. How about you?
Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, how you doing?
All right, thanks. All right, thank you. Yeah.
I had to comb my hair. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, Kendra. There you go. What's up, Change?
Thank you.
I'm great.
Okay, we're starting at
Good evening and welcome to the City of Hampton Mayor City Council Special Call Work Session for April the 14th, 2026 at 5:30 held here in Council's Chamber at City Hall, 17 East Main Street, Southampton, Georgia, 30228. I call this meeting to order. I need presentation and approval of this agenda for the Special Call Work Session for April the 14th. Need a motion to approve it.
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilmember DeShane to approve the special call work session agenda and a second by Councilmember Cheney. Discussion from the council. Discussion from the public. All in favor? I have a 6-0. No, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's Zoom.
Oh, Councilmember White Williams?
Aye.
Can't hear.
Couldn't hear you.
Aye.
Okay, I have a 6-0. The public hearing was canceled, so we're gonna move on to agenda item 4, new business. Consideration and action on the street improvement pavement, sign posts, thermoplastic center stop and fog lines. City manager?
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council and guests. You can click there if you don't mind, that'd be awesome. You can give me the clicker. This is a project that's been around for quite some time with the city. I've discussed with several of you about this as well. This is a proposal to see if we could reallocate some funds. We did purchase 16 acres of property. It's my understanding that the intent, albeit not formalized yet, is to proceed with potentially a new city hall. So this has been on the books and SPLOST for the last, Lennox, 3 years, to improve and to repair or to remodify the city hall, the current existing city hall. The suggestion would be to potentially reallocate some of those funds for those allocated uses from the SPLOST 5 and to potentially use those to proceed with some of the signage that I like to show up here that you all have all seen before. Different waypoints coming into the city. We can move past those relatively quickly just to give an idea. This will be available for anyone to review later on. But in the waypoints coming to the city, kind of establish those as well as along Main Street. And those are designated, but you also can find them on the actual handout to where they correlate with which signage would go where. There's kind of the size of the signage that would come in, and we'll show you more detail here in just a moment. That's some of the detail with backlit lighting. You can go to the next one. Kind of see the size of the vehicle compared to the size of the sign. On the back of those signs, you have a location where you can put in not banners, but actual inserts for the different events that the city does, such as the Yellow Pollen Festival. There's an example of that.
And that details picked up from the depot detail, that's why the insert is like it is.
Yes. And then you have additional signage out in front along Main Street for the train depot, City Hall, and the police department, which will be coming up here shortly. Also signage and poles along the avenues and thoroughfares off of Main Street with City Hall markers, train depot markers, and historic location markers, as well as the actual street names themselves.
Now, Glen May inspect those signs. If you go see Glen May, they've established and put those types of signs, sorry, excuse me.
No, no, ma'am, go ahead. Parking signs. So this is an unofficial, this is a asking for the city council's approval for the city manager to proceed with trying to get to enter into the bidding process on that, if you so determine that you would like to reallocate those funds for this project.
Thank you. Questions from the council?
Madam Mayor, I have comments, not questions. I'm not in favor of using reallocating SPOS funds. I would rather see us take this from fund balance. We have upcoming SPOS elect votes that are coming now, and there's enough in the public comment section on social media about how SPOS funds have been intermingled and mixed and not used for what they're supposed to be used for. And I just have an issue with using reallocating SPOS funds.
Yes, sir, and I'm glad you brought that up. This has been an informal, I don't have any promises, there's nothing in writing, an informal conversation with, we've had conversations around the data centers. And you were in the room with Ms. Yarborough the other day as well. It was floated to them, and I haven't gotten anything back from her just yet, but she's been out of town, to where it would be nice to put those as a addition to part of the MOU to where they might want to reimburse the city for this project as well. Not official, but something, if we took it from the general funds, that might be something that we could do for sure, or from the fund balance.
Yes. Councilman Brady?
I'm good, yeah.
Do we have money already allocated for signage?
Replacement signage, not necessarily this project itself, no.
Okay.
Also, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is signage on the list of things that can be used for SPOS? Is that on the list? I know there's a list of items.
Right. They're typically put into a bucket for public safety. Signage typically can fall under public safety. It's not necessarily just way markers, but as markers for where the cities are. So it has been used in the past for that. I'm not sure here, but in other locations, yes.
Councilman?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, I'm in favor of the projects. If the council wishes to fund the project, of which areas or where the money coming from, is fine. So Mr.
Meeks.
No. Mr. Meeks mentioned, preferred is. It really doesn't really matter. It's based on for it to be funded. to get the project started.
Yes, sir.
So,
And that's the purpose of this, is just to have a referendum to do that, and then we can modify and critique where you guys want to pull it from, and, I think we could get a thorough report from Mr. Lennox as well. as
If
how
the
that-
best way to get it from what you mentioned earlier is fine with me. If the best way that Councilman Meeks mentioned is also fine with me as well.
Yeah. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
In answer to Councilwoman Brooks's question, the SPLOST 5 items do show 108,000 for gateway signage and branding. And then there are several other ITB landscape arch, 50,000. There's LMIG money that I believe could be used for
Not landscape.
not signage, okay. The Rosenwald Park multi-use trail, I don't know if some of that might be able to be used. Cherry Street pedestrian improvements, I realize some of these signs, I don't have the picture that showed where the signs would be, but there's several funding sources in SPLOST 5, other than taking it away from the City Hall improvement, which has been designated, voted on, approved by the citizens. That's just my issue.
Sure.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Mr. Nick.
In addition to that, I'll also mention as well, part of the money I also love to help the finance department to fix that mess there. We call it mold
Yes.
and so forth to be fixed as well. And those are things I'm looking for to be accomplished as well.
Right, and we've discussed that, and I think that's in Public Works and Grounds, and that's in the process of getting fixed as far as that leak and mold issue.
Councilmember DeShane.
So you started off by saying something about the new city hall and then the improvements. So do we have funds already allocated? You started off with the purchase of the land was for the city hall, but I thought we purchased it saying we weren't going to designate it for any use. So do we have funds that was already allocated for the new city hall?
There are some allocations in SPLOST for that purpose. I'm trying to remember the, six, how much?
4.8 million in SPLOST 6.
Yeah, 4,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. On our current Splash 5, up underneath the gateway signage design and branding phase 1, which is allocated at $108,534. I need to know how much money of that have we spent? It's still showing that it's remaining. So I want to know, is it still remaining?
I believe that my understanding was portion of that was done to create what you saw up there from that, but I don't have any receipts to show that for sure.
So Mr. Forsythe is right here.
We can find the answers to that. We just look at, we have a spreadsheet that shows total spending for the year. Just look at that and we can get that information.
Same thing with the ITB landscape arch and engineering design for gateway signage. That we have $50,000 for that. What I'm trying to figure out is, we're talking about reallocating $443,000 over to signage. Do we need that type of money in signage, is what I'm trying to figure out. That's the first thing. Ms. Wanda, can you tell me, do you know anything about this, these gateway signage designs and what we see and all that?
So today, if you're looking at the fiscal year budget 2026, there hasn't been any money spent on those items to date, because they would have come through my office. As far as the overall gateway down 20, if you recall that we also engaged Pond, who did a landscape concept, because you can't just put one of these little signs out on the corner and call it a day. It has to be contextualized as far as the setting goes, landscaping, hardscaping. And so that's why the money, is not gonna make it for 100, even if we have 150. That's not gonna go a long way to make your gateway signage from 20 and Oak Street, unfortunately. But it is some money that we can get started depending on where you guys decide you wanna start with that. But currently, what's been designed is that those monuments that Mr. Baker just showed y'all, those have been designed by a landscape architect. So there's, yeah, the design has been done 4 years ago, but I just wanted to let you know, the construction drawings are done. And since that the structural, how you build it, the footings and things like that, that's done. But it's in no man's land, it's in outer space. It's not been designed by engineer to site it, to irrigate it, to build it in
Okay.
that space.
Okay, so, because what I'm hearing is that we have quite a bit of moving parts to this sign placement and design kind of scape that we're trying to put together here in the city. This is just a portion of that design and scape. So are we gonna get an entire, because right now, all I have is, I guess we wanna go out to bid for what? Like, the building of the signs,
Yes, ma'am, the fabrication and the building of the signs. And that's where I've got an informal quote for around $390 for those entire signs that you saw up there. Like I said, it's informal. I don't know how valid it is or anything else. So I'd have to go through the procurement process and come back before the mayor and council for approval on.
okay, so we're talking about fabrication and building of the signs in
And
this
placement.
moving of funding. So I would like to see us have a totality of this project. If you're talking about landscape, streetscape, hardscape, as well as, because if I fabricate these signs and they go to the warehouse and just sit there, or you put them out on, like you just said, and stick a pole in it, and we haven't done the rest of it, we're just gonna look a hot mess. And we're
Well,
trying.
it's similar to what was taken down on East Main Street. Those signs were not like for
That's right.
longevity as far as how they were made,
Mhm.
but they were all 20, they were there and present, which is great, but they were just a sign. And so the whole concept, and at least how we got here, and this is before Mr. Baker got here, right? So there was a lot that went into, you know, plan the whole corridor and make these signs something that, you know, is our gateway and representation on these major highways. And as you guys can imagine, we did the survey that we put out to the public at the time, 4 years ago, and had comment, and people were very reactive to what they liked and didn't like. And so they moved forward with that, what was appealing, and then we also engaged the whole concept of how these things will look when you go by McDonough Street, East Main Street, State Route 20, Oak Street, how they all talk together and how they sit in the world. And as we all know, when you get into citing things, you've got to get the engineers involved. And we don't have engineering drawings for any of this.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Just a question, I'm not trying to be difficult, just want to make sure we're protected and doing, not getting in, or putting ourselves in a awkward position. If we recall, there's a lawsuit that was made against the city of Milton, $35 million for a design, a planter that they put. Has that been resolved, and would we be placing ourselves in any position of liability with these? Because this was done, I believe, before that lawsuit took place, all of this design and everything. Are we putting ourselves in are these edifices going to be real brick, real stone, and are we placing ourselves in a position of liability?
And that lawsuit, I'm not familiar, I know where the gestation was, where the negotiated settlement on it, and I'm not sure that they're at that location, or that finality point yet.
Yeah.
I do know that that takes into consideration where you have to have the DOT involved in those type of things, and with the engineers, and the type of materials on that. So yes, that would be a consideration for us, of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the sighting of the signs on the concept, at least, they're not on the public right of way, which we've talked to the guys at Rosen, Maine, the entrance, and they were willing to give us an easement or access, you know, to that corner. And the same thing with Henderson Farms, as you're coming into the city back up on the hill, they're willing to give us a sign easement too, as well as on McDonough Street. So we weren't looking like, you know, we said we would coordinate all that to make sure that we even before Milton's lawsuit, that would be something that the city would be looking at.
And the developers at Henderson Farms have also expressed interest in replicating this internally inside of that development, not at our expense, at theirs.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
In addition to the engineers, if the council decide to fund these projects and based on 20, will it be protected from suppose someone want to run from we want to run our water line that particular area, will the engineer make sure that it doesn't rebuild over again, cost more money to build?
I mean, the issue when you get into all that, that's what's the value of designing it right, is to make sure that those things are projected for the future, and to ensure that what's built can stay, and also if somebody, has to move it, or it's on them, because we've established we own that piece and et cetera, that's where our sign is. You guys know from some of the engineering costs, you can spend, and we can spend, a chunk of this, even the 150 that we have for engineering. You could spend, like I said, the concept is done for the landscaping and the pretty pictures, which we can show, and could bring them, you can load them up for the meeting, our next meeting. But you could, so the concept cost us,
That's right.
$12,000 to $15,000 just for the concept, and that may be a low number, but for the actual design, you could spend $40,000 to $50,000 to ensure we take care of all those things. That's why you have a PE stamp, an LA stamp, to ensure that all those things, they're on their professional license.
Ms. Wanda, you and Jeff, I guess I would like to know, so we're considering the fabrication of these signs at this time. Why are we not considering the next step, which would be the engineering of the design? Like, I'm trying to figure out, why did we get
Well,
to?
and that's part of the process of what we're doing. I mean, that's including the roadway improvements, because part of that can be paid for with money already allocated to just restripe and resurface, reseal, and just to change the aesthetics of that area. But also, I think in this, we can't proceed with just building the signs and throwing them out there without doing the engineering as well.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes, I think that our best course of action at this time is to allow staff to come back and give us a step-by-step guide of how we're going to get, because I think the signage, the gateway signage, is absolutely wonderful. I remember 4 years ago, concepts and design and all of that, and here we are 4 years later, and we still don't have gateway signs. So I think it would be a great idea for staff to come back and let us know funding details, how we're going to move forward with what you are requesting.
Okay, and I agree. I think that's, got some notes down here that we'll come back and we'll review some of the possible funding sources for you, as well as getting some pricing on the engineering and the rest of the preceding parts before we do the fabrication and everything else. The gist of tonight was to see if there's a will to move forward with that. So if there is, then we will do so.
Councilmember DeShane?
Is there any sort of grant opportunities that we might be able to tap into?
Well, they are, but they're far and few between and disappointingly low on a lot of these. So,
Okay.
but we certainly will explore those.
Councilmember Meeks?
I hope, last question. Is the 443,714 in addition to the 158,554 already?
The verbiage was to be up to that amount, depending on what the pricing would end up being.
So the
It was a
443
target area, just kind of a parameter for us to work within to see if it's feasible.
So
Once
the
we get some of the
443 is the total amount?
That would be optimal, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember.
I think the citizens have spoken many times, signage be done. I remember when the sign was removed from 20 for a particular reason. And we need to have this back. The citizens have to, people have to know where to go.
Right.
I'm telling you, we're not here just been sitting for 4 years now. So it's time to make a move and get it done.
Okay.
I'd
And we'll
like-
bring this back at the next meeting with some of those
Agreed.
questions answered.
I'd like to
Okay,
agree.
so, it seems as we have a consensus with the council that we'll get a step-by-step plan that includes what we're going to be doing in the order in which we're going to be doing it and what our funding sources could possibly be for those particular steps.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Perfect.
Moving on to agenda item 4B, consideration and action to approve replacement vehicles for the public works.
Yes, ma'am. This is a replacement vehicle that was crashed and totaled out by Travelers Insurance. They're still negotiating with Allstate. Public Works has impressed upon me the importance of getting the vehicle up and running so they have another vehicle. There's 2 vehicles on here that we have gotten as state pricing on, one being a Ford F-150 Super Crew and one being a Chevy Silverado 1500. Both of those have comparisons down there for you to look at. My recommendation would be, because of the savings with the Ford F-150 4x4 Super Crew, which could haul personnel, equipment, and has a towing package, would be to proceed with the Ford for $49,500.
Thank you. Any questions from the
Madam
council?
Mayor, I have a question.
Councilmember Cheney.
You mentioned you received quotes from the state, but in our agenda, we have quotes from Hardy Chevrolet and Allen Visual.
Yes, ma'am. State contracts.
Okay, state
I misspoke.
contracts.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
From
okay.
the independent dealerships that have the state contract pricing. for us.
Okay, so Henry County, we don't have any state contracts with the dealerships here?
They're far and few between on those as far as which dealerships actually hold any state contracts on that, and these are the recognized dealerships that do.
Okay,
So
because,
this is-
you know, we want to spend our money
Well, of
in our
course.
own county.
Yes, ma'am. And if
We don't
could,
want to have to
would.
go out the county.
Sometimes with the police department, police vehicles with a demand, you have to go to North Georgia or
Okay.
North Florida. So it depends on where they have them for availability and which actual dealerships participate in the state contract pricing.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to piggyback off Councilmember Cheney because I just want to make sure I understand. Our Chevy dealership and our Ford dealership here in the county do not have state contracts.
That is my understanding. When they get these pricings on them, they have to go through the ones that are designated for that.
And they are not designated for that.
Yeah, and the chief just confirmed that. I don't want to tell you definitively, but neither one of them are. So these are the 2 closest that are
Okay.
for Ford and Chevy.
Okay.
How much are we expecting to get back from the insurance?
They've just now started doing the assessment on the damage. I have emails today.
Yeah, it will not be the full amount of this, but it will be probably 3/4 of the way there. It wasn't a, it's a total loss on that other vehicle.
When did this crash happen?
November 17th,
25?
25.
Oh, I don't know that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Meeks.
seeing as the chief is here, is there any difference or preference that the police department might have, any advantage of one over the other, or are both satisfactory?
Yeah,
These
being
are
a
public works
vehicle,
vehicles.
we
Oh,
don't
it's
have a
public
preference.
works.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
The
well,
one that was involved in the crash on 1941 at Woolsey and Richard Petty.
yes.
And there was certainly a violent crash.
And what was the vehicle that was
Was it a Ford or Chevy?
it a Ford or
Yes, it
Chevy?
was
Chevrolet.
Ford.
Chevrolet? All right, and, well, I see Mr. West back there, I should ask him.
I think it's Mr. King's.
Mr. King's prerogative? Okay, is he here? Is there an advantage over either one, or? of either
I
one?
broke those down for you, sir. There are some differences and some
Yeah, I saw
pluses and
that.
minuses, but
I was just personal preference of the department. I know it's like a $5,000 difference, and I
Right.
just thought I'd ask. But I'm all for going with the cheaper one.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
at some point, I would like to get a list of fleet vehicles that we have in Public Works. These are 2. How many trucks do we have in the department? And if we don't replace this, does this prohibit us from doing our day-to-day?
well, it certainly puts a stymie on that. I mean, they have trucks allocated for different duties in different locations. Some of the trucks that we have currently in service, I know are stretching it. One doesn't really have a front seat that's sittable, so I think they're looking to replace that front seat so they can extend the life a little bit, but you have a suggested life on some of those, and I don't think we have an excess of vehicles, but I will give you a full count on those.
Hi, everyone. This is Councilmember White Williams. Mr. Baker.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you, just to kind of piggyback off of what you just mentioned, have we identified any other vehicles in our Public Works Department, work vehicles and not vehicles for the supervisors or directors to drive around, but for actual workers that are out in the field every day? Have we identified any additional vehicles that may need to be replaced?
There is a replacement schedule. At this time, I've not been notified of any other vehicles that are near replacement on that, other than there's cycled replacement. And based on mileage and repair costs, is what we typically start looking at mid-year.
Okay, and do you know how close we are in that cycle to some of those vehicles needing to be replaced?
I have not looked in detail at those, but normally you have I believe there's 1 or 2 vehicles that you typically have each year on a replacement cycle. Some of those can be stretched out depending on budgetary constraints. So, but we'll look into that, and I'll get you guys a report on the count and the condition of each vehicle and the mileage.
Madam
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. First, is this, so this vehicle is not budgeted?
The vehicle was budgeted. It's a replacement on that off of the insurance payment.
A wrecked vehicle was budgeted? This
At one point or
vehicle
another
is
it was
wrecked.
budgeted, so this is a replacement of a budgeted asset, so yes.
It's
not
in the
for-
budget already,
Not for this year, but it's a replacement off of an insurance payoff.
but we're not gonna get full replacement amount of money.
No, ma'am, we're not.
So are we gonna have to do a budget amendment is what I'm asking?
It's very possible, yes.
Let me go back to, the state contracts. I understand that this is state contract, but is there a reason why we didn't reach out to other dealerships outside of it not being state?
We can certainly revisit that and go back and do it, and see if they
I
can
was just
come up with a
wondering
better
if they
price.
would give us a better price.
I doubt it, but we can try.
Well, we got the quote.
Usually these are usually the state prices are usually a good 5% to 10% below what your market value is.
So I want to interject here because we just bought 3 replacement vehicles in 2024. One that the city manager is driving and 2 for Public Works. In addition to 3 vehicles, 3 trucks for Public Works, that we just did a budget amendment in 2025 for those vehicles that we bought before the budget was ever amended. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a problem with the budget amendment because we just did it for, it may not have been the Public Works vehicles, and Bo, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we just did a budget amendment for 3 new vehicles, third quarter of 2025.
Come on.
That
And
is
also,
correct,
do
but
you
so I
know-
don't think that there's a problem with the budget amendment. I was just asking in regards to if we would need a budget amendment, because if this is a wrecked vehicle, I don't see how it could have been in the budget. It's a wrecked vehicle, so we're replacing
Let me
it.
clarify what I meant. When it was originally purchased, it was in a budget, I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
So as you have a crash on these, you try and do the replacement off the value of the monies, or we can determine not to replace the vehicle, and we can put the funds directly back into the general fund.
Yeah.
It's an option for whatever the political will of the council is. Yes,
I think
ma'am.
it-
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember DeShane.
So do we have a fund that kind of we put into in case of these things happening, that there is money put aside that
You would
part
have-
of our maintenance programs to say that if something happens, because how often do these vehicles have to get replaced for whichever?
Accident.
No.
Several
Ty-
accidents we seem to have had.
Typically, you don't. It's going to be something based on what the replacement value of it is, and then you're doing an assessment to see if whatever the amount that you get from the insurance company to see if it even matches, if it'd be feasible to buy another one, if there's a need for the purchase of another vehicle. So you don't normally budget for those.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Brooks, give me 1 second, Councilmember White Williams.
I simply wanted to ask, could you give me the primary use of those two vehicles that you're seeking to replace? What were they used for? Was it the supervisors or?
This is actually, there's only one vehicle that's
Okay,
been
well,
wrecked.
it's got vehicles, so I didn't know. Go.
No, ma'am, it's just one vehicle replacement.
Okay.
And it's allocated over to utilities, and I would wait till he gets in. Do you remember who?
It was the superintendent's vehicle in the public works side is whose vehicle it was assigned to when the accident happened. I'm sorry, Ms. Brooks. When the accident happened, it was assigned to the superintendent of the street department on the public works side.
Thank you. Councilmember White Williams?
Chief Turner, the vehicles that the two new Tahoes for Public Works as well as the city manager Tahoe, did we purchase those vehicles from any dealership within the county, or did we have to go to another county, state-approved vehicle dealership? I'm sorry.
We did them under state contract. I believe it was Thornton is one of them. Both were outside the county because of state contract. And we, at the police department, we have to replace a lot of vehicles, so I'm very familiar. We've gone down the path and asked to try to give the business inside the county. It's usually, Mr. Baker said 5%. What we saw last year was like 15% higher, not under state contract, because they've already negotiated it to where they're selling at a wholesale rate to anybody who qualifies under the state contract. So we did have to go outside for our ones, for those three that you're talking about, but also the two police vehicles last year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And if I could, we do have a point on comparison. The police department, we had a wrecked vehicle that was, it covered about 65%. And we did the same thing in 2024. We came before the council. There was a net difference of about $17,000 is what, and then we didn't have to do a budget amendment, and the reason we didn't, it was within the same department, and since we were under 17,000, we were just able to do a line item transfer. So a budget amendment may not be necessary depending on Public Works of where they are at the end. It was, we were under budget, so we didn't have to do that. But that was with the understanding when the council approved, we may have to come back and get that budget amendment.
Thank you. All right, so I believe it is the will, what I'm hearing from the council, that we would like to go ahead and see about purchasing another vehicle. I mean, they gotta have a vehicle.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, gotta have a vehicle. If that is the consensus of council.
Yeah.
For them to.
I'm in agreement to move forward.
Okay. All right, moving on to agenda item 5A. Council discussion regarding the appointment of city council members to serve as council liaison or representatives of the City of Hampton board authorities and committees. This item will include consideration and appointment necessary to ensure each body is properly staffed, supported, and aligned with the city council's policy, direction, and governance of the responsibilities. I believe Councilmember White Williams wanted this on the agenda, or Councilmember DeShane?
Well, this was an item that, excuse me, was on the January council meeting that we kept kicking down the road. So I told the clerk, I think we need to just go ahead and have this discussion so that we can go ahead and X this off the list.
Okay, what is the discussion that you would like to have in regards to it?
So the discussion would be based on, I think we identified several boards that each council member could serve on, and just determining which boards they would like to serve on.
I think they're committees, right? Not boards.
And or committees, or as the council liaison, let me say that. Which committees or boards they would serve on as the council liaison.
This was kind of brought up, I guess, from Councilmember Mitchell saying that previously when he was on council that there was this, administrative
So that's B.
committees and, you know, what I mean,
That's item B.
Oh, so which one is
Five
this
B,
one?
this
A.
is A. Probably pull your mic closer.
So I believe,
Hear you.
Councilmember Brooks, are you there?
Yes.
Do you remember the list that we had identified?
Okay,
as-
Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry.
This has been some years ago, years ago.
Okay.
It is a committee that council members can serve on. It could be youth council, it could be electric, utilities, and the mayor pretty much primarily would make those appointments. That's the committee that you're speaking of. You're not speaking of the committees that, such as HDA, DDA.
So.
Do you remember?
I want everybody to be clear. Agenda item 5A is talking about HDA, DDA, URA, HHPC, all of those boards, authorities, those.
Yeah.
Item 5B is talking about what Councilmember Brooks is talking about in regards to the appointment of the mayors for committees. If it was a finance administration, if it was community development,
Water and
those are
sewer.
on 5B.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're talking about 5A now in regards to HDA, DDH, HHPC. I'm trying to figure out. I didn't put this on the agenda, so I'm not exactly sure what you guys want to cover on it.
Well, I think it was when it was being discussed in the session, it was regarding whether there was going to be a formal process, like an application or some sort of a process. I think that was the discussion.
Okay.
That was getting kicked down the road
Okay.
to come, to say, what did we want the process for these boards to be, whether it was, we wanted a formal application and people apply and we're picking from those applications, or is it that each person is just nominating someone and that's their like, what is it that we're doing?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Brooks.
pretty much what the clerk has put here, it pretty much
Right.
explains exactly what the discussion should be about. Expired terms on our HDA, DDA, boards, committees, authorities. So I think it's a matter of us just looking at the list and determining if some of the members that are listed, if their terms have expired, so we can make sure that we have no vacancies.
So that is what we came up with, but because I didn't add anything, I didn't add this item. I just want to make sure that we're covering all of the information that everyone wants to share in this workshop in regards to what we're covering. So yes, of course, the bylaws and the governing documents of ordinance covers how you get the HDA members, whether by appointment with an up and down vote, if each council member, and that's not just HDA, but DDA, the
Historic.
HHPC, all of them have their governing documents that already tell us how we do this. So I'm saying, are we changing something about that? Are we adding something to it?
I think it's all about vacancies. Are we full? Do we have any vacancies on the HDA,
So
DDA?
So the HDA, everyone's term has expired. If they are currently serving, they're serving just continuation. So they're in the middle of their term, but it was continuation. They weren't reappointed. So everybody on the HDA needs to be reappointed and or replaced. So I believe we have on the agenda for tonight, some of the council members had people that they wanted to recommend. It will come before the council. It will go to an up and down vote for each one of those members, and they'll be on the HDA. If you did not have someone, of course, we can always just, if you guys, because right now I'm showing there's five or six, seven. I'm sorry, I'm not on
5
the
or
page.
6 what?
people that was on the agenda for tonight to be
Oh.
voted on up or down.
I think the
Down.
only two that, I don't have anyone to appoint tonight, and I think Keisha White Williams as well. I think everybody else have recommended someone.
Okay, and I think there was also a question that Mr. Mitchell had brought up in the session about the up and down voting in regards to your appointment, that it was, he didn't feel that that is the process that should be used, that it should be, if that's your appointment, that's your appointment, and it shouldn't go to a up and down vote.
So all HDA, DDA go to an up and down vote. We send in the names, they go on the list, we vote them up and down. Each council member raise their hand and vote those individuals. The only ordinance that I have seen, and Mr. Denmark is here, he can tell me, that I've seen that actually gives that authority to a individual council member to appoint a person, specifically is HHPC. Am I accurate, Mr. Denmark?
I believe that's accurate.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments about this? So we know how we're doing things and which way we're going?
So, yeah, so I kind of believe we diluted 5A and 5B together in this discussion that we just had, which is fine, but my recollection for item 5A was that we were going to look at the boards such as, there was a planning and zoning, there was a finance, there was a public safety, there were a couple other boards, and I can't seem to put my finger on those other boards that I'm referring to that council could serve on, or not boards, but rather committees that council could serve on. So,
We're gonna go to that agenda item next, Councilmember White Williams. That's
Okay.
5B.
so it sounds like 5A and 5B should have been combined, because we're
Well, no.
meshing,
So
it sounds
five-
as if we're meshing them together a little bit.
So no, 5A actually is about our authorities, our boards that serve for the city, and they have their own bylaws, their own rules, and all of
Correct.
those things.
Okay.
5B are actually appointed committees that the mayor can make if there's an issue that arises that the mayor would like to see more study done on, if there's anything that you would like to see oversight, the mayor would like to see oversight on, that those are those committees. And so what you're talking about, like we used to have an administrative and finance committee. We used to have a community development committee. We used to have a parks and recreation committee. All of those different committees, and it was left up to the mayor to actually seat people in those committees and to serve on those particular committees. At this point in time, I've chosen not to have any of I haven't appointed anybody to any of those committees at this time. I am thinking about at least one of those committees so that we can have a better oversight on some things, but at this time, I have not decided to actually appoint to that committee, to those
Okay.
committees.
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, moving on to agenda item 5C. We're going to ask Ms. Kendra Sutherland if she would come forward.
The
One
mayor may
second,
create
Kendra.
committees of
Thank you.
members of council to study any issue before the council. Any such committee may make recommendation to the city council, but no committee shall be empowered to make any final decision on any matter before it is for consideration. In addition to council members, committees may include other city officials, staff, citizens at large. That is, the mayor shall serve as an official member of all committees.
Yes. So we just have not, we've chosen not to do those committees at this time.
Ms. Melissa, did you have anything else you want to add? All right, moving on to Ms. Sutherland.
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Sutherland.
Hello. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Kendra Sutherland from 29 East Main Street South. I come before you tonight regarding Resolution 2026-12, regarding the logo, to share some community feedback on the city branding that was voted in 1 year ago. Michelle, is it possible to get is it possible to put the presentation on? Is it? Oh, okay, got it. Perfect, okay. And so, while community input was sought in 2023, I believe no community input was solicited before this round of branding was approved. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And so, while, this may seem trivial, some are saying, oh my gosh, we're talking about the logo again. Our city has and will spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on the implementation of this logo into architectural features like we were hearing about just a moment ago, wayfinding signage, street signage, uniforms, business cards, digital assets, digital asset updates, car wraps, patches, letterheads, printed materials, flyer marketing collateral, swag, and much more. So it's one logo with a lot of financial impacts. And so it seems fair to share some of the public opinion that on the current branding before we commit to ratifying it in such an indelible way. So I'm really happy that this resolution was raised to revisit the branding. Thank you so much for doing so. And before you tonight, I'm going to present some feedback, and I'm relying on forums in which the public feedback was solicited and shared on Facebook in the What's Happening in Hampton private page, since there was really no other feedback solicited by the city. So it's really all I had to go on. And so if you're willing to hear this feedback and let it influence our branding, I'm confident that we can come up with a more representative and enduring brand than the current one, because I think it will truly reflect more of the community input. So what you see here is we actually had several posts. There's 2,000 members in the What's Happening in Hampton page, and there was a total of 240 comments on the branding and logo. This was initiated by different people who brought it up, and it generated quite a lot of feedback. So February 7th, 29 comments, 54 comments on March 13th, so quite a lot of engagement. And overwhelmingly, the sentiment after I reviewed all of this, and I'm happy to share the data with you if you're interested, was negative. So most of the community input was not in favor of the current branding, and there was 8.6% that was positive. And I think this is important to, respond to and consider in the adoption of this branding. So if we go to the next slide, why was it negative? What were some of the issues that people raised? So overwhelmingly, it was the color that a lot of people commented negatively on. Some said multiple reasons, and then others said no public input, and then some said it's just not Hampton. So within the color feedback, it was stated in so many ways, either not appropriate, and I give the numbers of the counts of those comments, whether it was not appropriate or not Hampton, not professional, or too effeminate. Those were the themes or the kind of topics that the feedback fell into. And then multiple reasons, it was, in general, they just seemed to feel it was not appropriate. And then no public input, and then under that also didn't like the color. So this is some of the feedback. And just for context, these are some logos that we can see ours positioned against. I think just in kind of looking at it, you can see there's just quite a lot of richness and depth that can go into a logo to make it a timeless and enduring emblem for our city. And just to reflect on the findings in the 2023 survey that was done for our city by the branding agency, the top results of the favorite Hampton experience descriptors that people said were historic, small town, charming, neighborly, friendly, down to earth, casual, laid back, quiet, and peaceful. But I feel that the color and the logo that we have chosen visually doesn't quite reflect that. As you can see, here's it positioned with multiple other cities in our region and across the state. And then, as you can see, our logo tends to fall more in a family with these brands that we're all pretty familiar with, you know, with the color. And I think that's important to not ignore this. And this is not, you know, to throw anyone under the bus. Like, I've been in design school before, you know, and there's things we can just miss by, you know, picking something. And it's just so awesome when someone can point it out, because it's like, wow, I didn't even see that. And then you just see it in a new way, and it can help us avoid, you know, what I think could be a mistake. So you can see other brands that share some of the vernacular that we chose, and I don't know that it really reflects those survey results. One citizen comment said, you know, and I found this interesting because they said the new Magenta Hampton logo sponsored by T-Mobile. So they just called that out on their own. And it's interesting because I'll be honest, some of the citizens that commented, we may not all agree on some things, but this seemed to be a bit of a unifying topic that many seem to align on who usually don't agree. So I found that interesting, just a personal take on it. But as you can see, color is so important. Color, you know, conveys mood, emotion, and ways that it can be used and that make it appropriate for certain brands. And this is just a mood board for the color pink. You know, it's not quite the same pink or magenta that we have. And I have nothing against pink, you know. I love pink. I'm wearing it tonight. But yeah, I think it's not about personal preference. It's about what is right for the city and what will endure over time. But beyond the logo itself, I think it's important to look at the process also that was used to get us to this point with this current logo. So the process of developing this branding was done, you know, as far as I can tell, without public input, nor really a structured RFP approach to solicit a branding agency. You know, for context, you can see City of Mableton's RFP is online right now. And I don't know if we did an exhaustive process for selecting the first branding agency or the second. And this seems to be one of the reasons why maybe we are where we are, with a logo that doesn't seem to appeal to the majority of people. And as you can see, I found it really interesting just the level of detail that they requested in just the RFP, to have the agencies provide full cover letter, ways that they're going to handle the research, the discovery, and then they would evaluate those different proposals to select the best one. And I did not see that, certainly not for the second round of this branding proposal that we went through. And so, like I know in this last round, I do know things were much less structured and transparent as far as I could tell, because at the time the branding was being evaluated, I was on the Hampton Downtown Business Alliance when I first learned that the city was looking into updating its branding. And I immediately reached out to one of the lead commercial architects in the region, Smith Haynes, award-winning, and I asked him for a recommendation for a local branding agency. And without hesitation, he recommended Proper. And when I mentioned the project to Proper, they were so eager to participate, they met with Kenda and Amanda and explained they were more than willing to work with our budget, and because they were passionate about small towns of Georgia. And we held 2 meetings with Main Street, and we're told that budget discussions were being held over the coming weeks, and then nothing. Nobody got back to them. Nobody got back to, you know, me or anything. I had to ask what's going on, and neither Main Street nor the city ever followed up with them or asked for a quote. A few months later, the current logo design was presented and used on marketing materials immediately. So the businesses were told that this was the branding and that the Downtown Business Alliance would have to adhere to them. So not only were the businesses and citizens not solicited for input on the final designs, to my knowledge, but the evaluation and selection of the agency seems to be unilaterally decided without due diligence or soliciting of proposals from 3 separate firms to ensure an unbiased and fair selection process. So there was no disclosure of what metrics led to the selection of the Griffin-based firm. And I recently reached out to Proper and asked for their professional insights on the current branding. I'll present their preliminary feedback, which they provided free of charge. And they offered this because small towns and small culture is something they are very passionate about, and the importance of lifting up these smaller towns as unique places is something they see missed far too often. So they noted some unique aspects about Hampton that set us apart. Hampton retains more of a rural southern charm while still being located close enough to the Atlanta metro. From the preliminary research, the gap in us thriving, in their opinion, is not economic. It's about visibility and placemaking and civic identity. All of this is key in branding, and branding is key in that. A focused investment in 1 to 2 differentiators they thought could unlock disproportionate growth from our neighbors, not following the typical growth playbook that we've been doing, bringing data centers and maximizing subdivision housing. So, yep.
You know, measure more 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm wrapping up. Okay. They noted that Hampton's advantage is rare and real. Hampton is starting from a natural place of strength, and its residents appreciate this pace of life, as we've seen from the survey results. It's rooted in community. They shared that the playbook is not to chase what other towns have. It's to build on what Hampton already is, a place where strong families have already chosen. And this is really in line with the survey results of 2023. So I'll show you what they shared, some important metrics and things to look for in a good logo. I won't belabor those. They shared some other comparable, potential logos that are used for cities. And then they also shared just an evaluation of our current logo compared to the previous one and where they see kind of the strengths and weaknesses. I think something to note is just like they didn't really see a meaningful or distinctive aspect to that logo that we have currently chosen, and it's not really timeless or like over trendy. So in conclusion, personally, I've shared some feedback, I've shared some metrics. I personally cannot overstate my disappointment with the proposed new logo. But my goal in presenting today is that I hope we can integrate the feedback from our citizens and consider working with Proper or going to the previous firm to craft a logo that reflects all of our aspirations for Hampton. Some may say this will slow the city's progress, but speed is irrelevant if you're going in the wrong direction. Our logo has the potential to last 50 or more years, and so it really is important. I'll just wrap up with a comment that a person wrote that I found really informative. Many people feel like there wasn't enough communication or opportunity for broader input before decisions were made. No solution will make everyone happy, but if we approach it with respect, openness, and a willingness to compromise, we can find something that honors the history while also bringing the community together. So let's get this right so we can move on.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland.
Yes.
Any comments or questions from the council?
Yes, Kendra, I'm very thankful for that, the comment. I did a survey, 835 people have disliked the logo.
Yep.
I sent a 1,500 survey, 835 people dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the council will look into it and see what they can, make some changes.
Thank you.
Any further comments from the council?
I think this is something like Ms. Brooks said, that we should go back and consider and maybe get the citizens involved and, kind of go back to the drawing board and see what we could come up with if there's so many people that are displeased with the logo. They have to live here too.
Any other
I'm in agreement with Councilmember Mitchell and Councilwoman Duchenne. We need to go back to the drawing board to get input and maybe come up with a logo that is a little bit more modern and not too feminine. So that's my input.
All right, any other comments from the council? Councilmember Brooks?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we've heard comments from 3 members of the council. What will be the next step? Will the city manager be directed to add it to the agenda for next steps? Or we just make our comments and that's it?
So I would recommend that it definitely be put on the agenda for our retreat coming up. So we can go ahead and get started with that at that point in time. I will say, thank you, Ms. Sutherland, for your input, for your research. The 240 comments that was made, I'm not exactly sure. I didn't see how many people. I understand it was comments, but I didn't see how many people it were that actually commented those 240.
I have the exact number, but it was around 150. There were repeat people, so I made sure not to consider their comments twice.
Okay.
And that's why it was less numbers.
Okay.
I can give you the exact numbers.
All right.
Madam Mayor?
I'm sorry.
One more,
Yeah.
when you finish.
Councilmember Brooks.
Okay. Is it possible to have this added to regular session agenda?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
Yes, it'll be on both. We'll get started at the retreat and we'll have it at the next council meeting in May. Anybody else? All right. Seeing that is the last item on our agenda, item 6, which is adjournment for this work session. All in favor?
Do we need to say a second?
Do you have to get a motion?
I'm sorry, I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember DeShane and a second by Councilmember White Williams to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. If you guys can give me a moment, I need a bathroom break.
Thank you.
Hopefully ain't nobody in.
But you have to go like Ellen in The League of Blonde.